Welcome back to the St Baldricks Impact Series. I'm Kathleen Ruddy, and today's guest is none other than St Baldricks founder John Bender. Besides being one of the organization's three founders, he is a true veteran Shavee, volunteer event organizer, team captain, board member, chairman emeritus, and generous donor. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Kathleen.
So, John, let's jump in because you're one of those people all St. Baldricks zealots want to know. The foundation's origin is a unique one, and people always ask the story, but as one of the authors of that story, please let's make sure everybody has the real one.
Okay, so it was July 3rd going into July 4th. Me, Tim, Kenny, Enda McDonald, and John LaCava being the fourth. Would play golf every July 3rd and then go back to Tim's house and have a barbecue and stay up to the wee hours of the night. And maybe we're a little overserved. And at 2-ish or 3 in the morning, a conversation came up about giving back and that our careers are going really well. And they were, and we hadn't really thought about giving back. So Tim kind of gave us the ultimatum and said, well, you're not welcome to stay in my house unless you come to an agreement on doing something tonight. So that's what we did. And ultimately, we came up with an idea. We started talking about each of us knew a kid who had passed away of cancer. And kids who get cancer, they tend to get treatment. Treatment has them lose their hair. In my case, it was a kid named John Zarcone from St. Agnes Cathedral High School. Died, I think, sophomore year of high school, which back then, young kids are supposed to be invincible. They're not supposed to pass away. So we said we do something in solidarity with kids with cancer. And what do? Enda had like this Flock of Seagulls haircut back in the day, if you know that band. And I said, Enda, we could raise some money if you shaved your head in solidarity with these kids. And I didn't see the boomerang coming back when Enda said, I will if you will. And before I knew it, we had set up that night to have, March 17th, our annual industry St. Patrick's Day party. Turn into a fundraiser, getting 17 people in the industry to shave their heads on March 17th and raise $17,000. And that's when we went to bed, and that's how it started.
And on that first day, you surprised yourselves because you raised more than $17,000. Tell us how that day turned out.
Correct. We went down to Jim Brady's, and it was a little bit of a craziness because, we went down, had lunch, and then we just moved chairs away from the middle of the restaurant, and people were still eating, and we put a barber chair in the middle and got a buzzer, and we started buzzing here while people are eating all around us. And we ended up, I think, having like 22 people shave their heads that day, and was surprised when the news actually showed up. And our first event was actually on the television news, which was the first time a lot of my relatives found out that I was shaving my head. But when all was said and done, we had raised $104,000.
That's pretty extraordinary. And the entire story is extraordinary because it was a genius idea, but going into an Irish pub in Manhattan on St. Patrick's Day, their busiest day of the year, and say, in the middle of the lunch hour, we're going to take over and start shaving heads in the middle of a restaurant. It was pretty out there as an idea.
Yeah, it was something. The idea was that talking about childhood cancer is not like a partying thing to kind of be talking about. So at the end of the day, we wanted to have a fun way to address a serious issue. And, that was our attempt at it. We never had an idea that it would turn out the way it turned out. But the more people heard about it, the more people wanted to get involved. And that's kind of how it took off. And then as an industry, we all travel. So as we traveled from place to place to place, people were interested in getting involved, and the event spread.
So that first event was St. Patrick's Day of 2000. But at that time, there wasn't a plan beyond that first event. And I think few people then, and certainly those who were there, would have predicted that the masses of volunteers who have since made this cause their own would do so. Why do you think so many have followed you?
It's the mission. The mission is pure and it's real. And when people know the facts of every 2 minutes a child in America is diagnosed with childhood cancer, and only 4 out of 5 of those children will survive today, that means something. And people start talking about it, and it seems everybody knew somebody who knew somebody who either had a child with cancer or knew somebody with a child with cancer. And that's how it grew. The mission is really what draws people in. The fun is the kind of, they kind of take the edge off the seriousness of the mission. It's the mission of trying to find not just a cure for every cancer, but a more humane cure for every cancer. So we don't put children through what we do to get them cancer free. And if you can talk about that in a kind of fun environment instead of a scary environment, outside an immediate child being ill, it means an awful lot and it goes an awful lot. And then, quite frankly, as we grew, more families of children impacted got involved in the foundation, and that also really led to the credibility of the growth of the foundation. And on top of that, adding doctors like Jeff Lipton to our board and bringing our scientific advisory committee in, so that we just weren't a bunch of crazy drunken Irish guys in the insurance industry, but we had doctors and scientists behind us, making sure that while we were raising the money, we were also spending it in a very credible way to only fund the best science matters. And that's really the underlying foundation of the whole St. Baldricks movement. Without that solid foundation, nothing would have grown from it. But we held ourselves accountable to be responsible for every penny of every dollar that is spent. We held ourselves accountable to make sure that we only spent the pennies on the most important things, trying to get the most money as possible each year to the mission of funding the best cutting edge research to find a cure for every cancer and a more humane cure. And we've done some other things along the way, like advocacy and other things along that way, infrastructure, kind of introducing the ability for institutions that don't have the financial wherewithal to get involved in some of the protocols and clinical trials by funding a piece of equipment or a statistician or a nurse that made them qualified for clinical trials. Kind of the access to care thing, where in wealthy neighborhoods, hospitals have all that stuff, but in some of the underprivileged neighborhoods in America, those hospitals don't. And we've tried to help our constituencies of both communities have access to the best care possible and the best research possible.
Well said. I'm going to paraphrase you, John, but you recently said something to the effect of, when you're a leader, you need to be a leader every day. What did you mean by that? And how do you live that mantra for St. Baldricks?
Yeah, well, it's, I guess the question that was raised that led to that answer is, you've mentioned I've raised a lot of money for the foundation, and our event tends to be one of the top fundraising events. And that's not by accident, because you can't just show up once a year and say, hey, give me money for the foundation. You have to be a leader and an advocate and an ambassador for the foundation 365 days a year, and talk about it everywhere you go to everybody you meet. And if you do that, when it comes time to ask people for financial support of the foundation, they're there for you. And if other people see you behaving that way and walking the walk and talking the talk, and that means, I do shave my head every year. I don't know what number I'm up to now. I think it's like 25 or 26 in 23 years, but this 24th year coming up. So it's a lot of head shaves. We've thrown an event every year. We raise a lot of money every year, and we donate a lot of money every year, because you can't ask other people to do things you're not willing to do yourself. So I guess that's what I mean by, being a leader.
So, John, by any measurement, you've been a very effective volunteer, very successful volunteer, as well as a very dedicated one. And as you mentioned, you've shaved every year since inception, some years more than once. You've been among the top 5 fundraising Shavees, I think, nearly every year, and your event is always a top performer. Your wife, Alana, is a wonderful, dedicated top volunteer. What's the secret of your success and longevity?
Well, I think the secret, and whether it's our success or someone else's, is no one does it alone. And you need to have committees to help you. And you need to continually bring new people into the mission so that no one burns out quickly. Nothing in life is done by yourself. You need success. You need support from your family. Alana and my kids have been heavily involved in St. Baldricks the whole time. The LaCavas, the Schaefer families, the Quinn families in Rockville Center, amongst others, the Tanner families have been heavily involved in helping us run our event in Rockville Center. And that goes beyond. There's people in the industry who've kept the Jim Brady's event alive until sadly Jim Brady's closed during the pandemic. But the ladies who ran that event for a long time and are looking to do that event at a different venue again this year. It's really, continuing to bring new people into the mission and do it in a way that has their heart and that they're willing to develop and share their time, their talent, and their treasure with the foundation.
You mentioned your children and the idea of growing the events, going to constantly new people that you're meeting, bringing them in. Each of your three children, John, were born after St. Baldricks was established. So what has it meant to you and Alana to see them grow up with a service and philanthropy mindset as they have?
Well, it's been an awesome way to teach kids that there's more to life than just kind of my stuff and me. My kids understand about helping other people. My children have met kids with cancer. My kids have met and interacted regularly with parents who have lost children with cancer, and they fully understand the importance of the mission. My oldest, Shannon, started the St. Baldricks Club in her high school. When she was in high school, that was taken over by my son and then my youngest daughter. Now they're all in college and they talk about St. Baldricks and do as much as they can to kind of push people towards St. Baldricks in their lives. But they understand the meaning of giving, and they've grown up knowing that it's very fun to help other people. It may be some work, but sometimes it's more fun than helping yourself. Actually, most times it's more fun helping others than doing stuff for yourself. And that's how my kids have grown up. And I would say that's how a lot of children in the St. Baldricks universe have grown up. And quite frankly, if you look at the colleges we have events at now, a lot of those college events came from kids in elementary school or high school that did events and then went off to college and started their own events in their colleges. So that's kind of a cool thing to see, right? And the biggest thing is, look, you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, Tim Kenny had to challenge us about giving back because we had never thought about it, and we were in our 30s. Now we have kids in their 10s and 20s born giving back, and that makes them better people than we ever were.
Well, I think we've talked many times about the fact that besides the great research that we're funding and the ability to help, save kids' lives, the next thing we're most proud of, I think, is all the young people that we're giving the opportunity to see that they can be leaders for others. And they don't need to wait till they're out of college and earning a salary to start giving back. So we do all of this, John. Your family helped establish this foundation to ensure kids with cancer grow up to live long, healthy lives. How has this path changed your life aside from seasonal baldness?
Well, honestly, I think it's made me a better person. And it's not just St. Baldricks. You kind of look to help people wherever you go, no matter what the issue is, but certainly St. Baldricks. And in another way, it's been a tough path because when we started this, we were thinking about kids we knew when we were young that passed away from cancer. But since that time, there's been lots of friends of ours that children have had cancer. I do have a friend right now that I went to school with at St. John's, Maureen Hines, whose 13-year-old son is being treated down at Duke Medical with ALL leukemia right now. So, and funny enough, some of the treatments he's getting right now are stuff that we've created through the research we've funded over time. So, that's really important stuff. And that more than anything else in life, I mean, a successful career is great. But the fact that I see children walking around now of friends of mine that were diagnosed with cancer and were ultimately treated with things we did as a foundation by funding the cutting edge research is the most rewarding thing other than my three children in my world right now.
That right there, folks, is the power, the magic, and the meaning of St. Baldricks, all beautifully summarized by you, John. Being part of this mission not only saves kids' lives, it improves the lives of the lifesavers as well. John,
Absolutely.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being such an inspirational leader, for sharing your rich experiences and perspectives today. And to our loyal audience for sharing this episode on your social channels. John's words are powerful, and I think he would join me in saying, remember that research is hope, and you are the creators of that hope. Visit us at stbaldricks.org to join in.